Mother dear, would you please come back?
I could eat another piece myself.
Oh, goodness.
Did you know that a quiet mansion deep in the woods of New York, abandoned for years, once belonged to one of the most beloved women in American television? Elizabeth Montgomery, the name forever linked with that radiant smile and magical nose twitch from Bewitched. But behind the charm was a life marked by deep fractures, a distant father, 4 failed marriages, and love affairs no one dared to speak of. When she passed away, there were no headlines, no grand funeral. Just a quiet mourning, a closed door, and a forgotten fortune. Think you know her story? What you're about to hear might just make you question everything you thought happiness looked like. You might not remember her name, but you definitely remember the nose twitch. Samantha Stevens, the clever witch wife from Bewitched, was a part of America's collective memory. In the 1960s, when the TV set was the heart of every living room, Elizabeth Montgomery was the most familiar face each evening. Amid a decade of upheaval, war, women's rights, racial tension, she appeared with a gentle voice and trusting eyes, like a quiet kind of magic that made people believe in simple goodness. She didn't need dazzling costumes or flashy effects. Just a glance, a twitch of the nose, and suddenly, the entire country was smiling and breathing easier. Bewitched wasn't just a sitcom, it was a part of childhood. Families gathered to watch Samantha conjure dinner, fix her husband's messes, or shield her kids from the ordinary world. And when Elizabeth smiled, something inside the audience softened, too. She didn't just act, she was there, like an old friend you'd always welcome home. Behind the studio lights, Elizabeth Montgomery was a daughter, a mother, and a woman always searching for a place to belong. Born in 1933, right in the heart of Hollywood, she was the daughter of screen legend Robert Montgomery and Broadway actress Elizabeth Daniel Bryan. It seemed like a life born into luxury, but in truth, Elizabeth grew up in a cold, distant home. Her father never wanted her to become an actress. To him, a woman's place was in the home, married, raising children, not in front of a camera. Though he helped her land her first role, he was also the first to criticize her, to doubt her, to coldly judge every step she took. Torn between her dreams and his expectations, Elizabeth carried the cracks of that childhood with her for life. And those cracks showed, in the way she loved, and in the men she chose. For marriages, each like a new chapter, a new attempt, from the man her father admired, to one twice her age, to the director of Bewitched himself. But it was always the same story, love that burned bright at first, only to fade and cool with time. It wasn't until the end of her life that she found someone who didn't judge her, didn't control her, just quietly loved her for who she was, not who she played. Though she had 3 children, she once said, "I never wanted them to grow up the way I did, with a father who made me feel like I was never enough." If there was ever a moment when Elizabeth Montgomery truly stepped out from her father's shadow, it was when she became Samantha Stevens. No longer the daughter of Robert Montgomery, she became her own name, her own light, a star who didn't need anyone else's legacy to shine. Bewitched premiered in 1964, in a divided America, war overseas, women's rights rising, and traditional families under strain. And then came Samantha, the modern witch wife, graceful yet independent, a breath of fresh air. The strange thing was, she wasn't trying to be inspirational. Just by living, loving, getting angry, forgiving, Samantha became a symbol for women learning to stay grounded in a shifting world. Elizabeth brought to the role the tenderness of a mother, the edge of someone who had known heartbreak, and a wit so effortless, it couldn't be faked. Audiences didn't love her just for the magic, they loved her for the way she looked at her husband and children, with knowing eyes, and forgiveness. Amid all the quirky chaos, what made people stay was the honest heart she poured into every scene. Bewitched ran for 8 seasons and hundreds of episodes, with Elizabeth at the center of it all. Not loud, not attention-seeking, but quietly making viewers feel, maybe I can be that gentle in my own home, too. On screen, Samantha could fix anything with a twitch of her nose. But in real life, Elizabeth Montgomery had no magic to mend a tired, worn-out heart. From a young age, she learned how to hide her tears, when her father criticized her, when her mother stayed silent, when friends only saw the polished surface. She grew up with a quiet belief, I'm only worthy if I make others happy. And so she married. Then married again. 4 husbands in total, each one representing a new hope and a new heartbreak. The first, approved by her father, became a small cage that stifled her dreams. The second, famed actor Gig Young, was charming but alcoholic, sometimes violent. The third, Bewitched producer William Asher, loved her wildly once, but it crumbled under filming schedules, children, and a love affair on set. The fourth, Bewitched director Richard Michaels, was her choice when everything was falling apart. But that, too, ended. Each time her heart broke, she stood back up. Smiling on screen. Gentle as ever. But with each role, the weight grew heavier, like she was trying to say the things she couldn't speak in real life. After Bewitched, she chose darker roles, rape survivors, murderers. She once said, I want to play the things women hold inside. In her final decade, life grew quiet. No more lead roles. No more cameras. Just a modest home, her new husband, Robert Foxworth, and 3 children who visited now and then. In early 1995, she began to feel tired. Persistent stomach pain, she thought it was the flu. Doctors were silent, colon cancer, already advanced. She didn't choose the hospital. She chose home, her final one. One quiet morning in May, she fell asleep, and didn't wake up. Just 8 weeks after the diagnosis. 1 month after her 62nd birthday. No headlines. No paparazzi. Just letters of sympathy, soft jazz playing. And someone whispering, she smiled as she left. After Elizabeth passed, the house in Agora Hills, where she spent her final years, still stood, as if waiting for an old laugh to echo back. A home with white columns, a peaceful balcony, a trickling waterfall. It had once been a rare place of peace she built for herself. But then it went up for sale. The housing market crashed. The price dropped by over $500,000. People came, not to live, but to look. To think a celebrity lived this simply, they whispered. Another house in Paterson, New York, once owned by the Montgomery family, sat abandoned for years. Eventually, it became part of Wonder Lake State Park. No portraits. No dressing table. Just faded wooden walls and dust gathering on the worn stairs. And the fortune she left behind, nearly $20 million, faded just as quietly. Much of it came from the 20% stake she held in Bewitched royalties. But there was no noise, no legal war, no headlines. She left it all behind the way she lived, without flash, without clinging. They say when an artist dies, you can learn something by looking at the homes they once lived in. With Elizabeth, those houses aren't just places. They're memories. And memories, if no one tends to them, will turn to dust, just like everything that once sparkled. Though she left this world quietly, Elizabeth Montgomery never truly disappeared. She left behind more than a role, she left behind a spirit. In a time still thick with prejudice and expectations, Elizabeth quietly stepped outside the mold, a woman who dared to divorce, who spoke up for the marginalized, who defended the LGBTQ+ community long before it was considered safe to do so. She didn't start a revolution. She simply lived as someone who knew what was right, and followed it. While many of her peers faded into privacy, Elizabeth chose a different path. She recorded audiobooks for the blind. Produced documentaries exposing government wrongdoing. Marched in support of love without labels. There were no scandals. No public justifications. Just a woman who moved through the world, and left behind the most beautiful thing an artist can, kindness. And when we look back at Bewitched, we finally understand why Samantha made us smile. Because she was played by someone who truly believed gentleness can be a kind of magic. Have you ever found yourself absent-mindedly twitching your nose like Samantha, lost in a memory? Have you ever sat in silence beside someone you love, watching an old show, and felt a quiet warmth fill the room? Elizabeth Montgomery was once a part of memories just like that, no spotlight, no need for fanfare. Just a gentle friend in your living room, a nose twitch, a soft smile. If she ever passed through your life that way, we'd love to hear your story. A small moment. An old memory. even just a feeling that still lingers. Because memories aren't just the past, they're where we meet each other again, in the calmest corners of the heart.